All right, so VCE, I just want to let people know, who haven't aren't as familiar with this. Um, we do lots of different things. We started out with a lot of birds. We've gotten into a lot of insect and plant pollinator work now, and Loons have been one of the long-term programs since 1978. Although VCE started in 2007, we were with the Vermont Institute of Natural Science prior to that. Um, And please explore the website and go to outings, all of that, learn butterflies, learn bees, use iNaturalist, use other programs that our software guy, Jason, who's developed this program, LoonWeb, has done. He's an amazing guy to make sort of community science really accessible, but also super helpful in getting your data into our databases and things like that. So tonight we're going to learn a little bit about behavior, some of the details of watching pairs, territorial aggressions, watching nests, and then we'll move into the LoonWeb part. Just to let everybody know, we partner with Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department. They refer pretty much every loon related thing to me and Eloise Gerard, my coworker, and we work with lots of different players. I spent an hour today on the phone with the head of operations for Green Mountain Power, trying to go through all the different lakes that Green Mountain Power deals with. And so that's just one of the little side things we do so that we can try to prevent flooding on probably well over 10 lakes that Green Mountain Power has dams that they control. So that's just one of the things. Dealing with that dead loon I was talking about with folks earlier who we were working with Tufts University, Loon Preservation Committee, UNH Vet Lab. So lots of different players that we're shuffling around all the time. We do lots of different things. Our focus is monitoring all the pairs, and that's where community science, all of you come in, is making sure all that happens. You are the biologists out there. You are also the educators. And so we're hoping that more and more of you become involved. A few years ago, I looked at my list, and there were well over 1,600 people who have been part of this program since I started in '98. We do a little bit of research, and then we do some rescues when needed. But what's great is you guys can take part in almost all of it. So back in '83, we were down to 7 nesting pairs. There were actually 5 other pairs that year that didn't nest. And no one thought they would come back that fast. I mean, it's obviously taken a while, but it's still relatively fast considering if you look at the '90s, it just stayed down there around 25, 30 pairs before things started to really expand. And last year we had 115 nests statewide. So pretty amazing success story. What caused all those declines? What were they like 100 years ago, 200 years ago? We don't really have a lot of data. There are some anecdotal things from the early 1900s about loons nesting in places. But it's all of these things. I'm not going to go into detail here. We'll have to do another program to cover all of these things. But lead sinkers and flooding on reservoirs, habitat for nesting, those are some of the main ones. And then obviously some natural threats. Bald eagles coming back now, competition with other loons. Those are big ones we're seeing more and more. And how did we help them? Combination of outreach, education, people being aware, using rafts where waters fluctuate, working with landowners all the time, putting out these nest warning signs, actually helping gather the data so we could get laws passed on legislation from mercury to acid rain to lead sinkers. All right, so you're out there monitoring our birds from ice out to ice in. It's all summer long, although the focus is during the breeding season. And when you're following a pair or a territory, you're kind of looking at, these are the things we're after. New pairs forming on parts of the lake that they weren't before, a nearby 30-acre pond, or is a new pair forming? Is the existing pair that's been there for 5 years or 35 years, are they back? Getting nest dates, nest locations, failed nests, renests, chicks hatched out. And then the main one is chicks surviving then to the end of August. And we just have an amazing, robust data set about these. Not all our birds very few of our birds are marked, so we're kind of following the territory versus the individual birds. We're also then documenting the disturbance and threats that you guys can now enter or will be able to enter on LoonWeb. So you get pair behavior, that's just birds hanging out, doing their thing. You might be nest searching. You might be building a nest. I actually saw that today up on Little Hosmer, taking a new volunteer out. They're pretty calm together compared to when a third bird shows up, where they might be a little more agitated and having to deal with that intruder or floater. Can also call them a non-breeder. Um, Territorial aggression happens when that third bird comes in, or a fourth bird, or a big group. And you'll often see kind of a call. You might hear the head raised, the little peering into the water. If there's a chick around, that chick might get stashed while the parents deal with that third bird. And there's kind of this low aggression level. There's not, there's no sign of fighting or chases or anything like that, but it could proceed to that. So penguin dances, wing rowing. I'll have a picture of wing rowing in a bit. Posturing, that lower right picture, the chest coming out, the bill down. I mean, these birds might be ready to kind of explode at each other if someone says the wrong thing. They'll do more calling, yodels and tremolos. One of the ways birds find a territory is to actually challenge another bird. And what's kind of neat is this sort of great gradient of less aggression to more aggression, and you can kind of watch that, and especially you can kind of learn. And if it's a 4-year-old bird who's come back from the ocean, they're checking out the pair, but they're not really a threat. I mean, they're not intimidating, they're not challenging. You might see some of this less aggression behavior, swimming in a circle, talking to each other, give a hoot, and then after 10, 15 minutes, the one swims off, and that's it. Whereas it might be an older bird who's really looking to do it. They see a weakness and they want to do a takeover. So you might see more progressing into a challenge with chases, penguin dances, lots of tremoloing, things like that. Most of the time, both male and female return every year. It's about 80% based on banded birds, mainly in Wisconsin, where there's been a lot of work by a guy named Walter Piper. And because of that 80%, the average marriage is 4 to 5 years that a pair stays together before there's a switch in one of the mates. That might last 2 or 3 years in some cases. There's a pair in Michigan that was together for over 20 years and produced 34 chicks in their time together. It was pretty amazing. They are monogamous during the breeding season. But what happens to that missing partner? Sometimes it's mortality. Sometimes they move to a different lake, or the eviction takeover stuff. So the takeover years, for males especially, it's really those 5 to 10-year-old males when they're in their peak of fitness. For females, it kind of just happens continuously. There's no real age-related part where you see more or less aggression. But both male and female on a territory will defend at the beginning. But if it sort of progresses into a real challenge, the non-sex challenger will actually back off and just kind of accept the winner. The male will challenge the male, female will challenge the female, and if there is a fight or a chase, that other one will just accept the winner. And that kind of translates into being more site faithful than mate faithful. You got the nest, you got a lake that has good food, and you're just waiting for a quality mate. So loonproject.org, that's a great website from Walter Piper, great blogs, lots of great insights, links to papers, both real scientific ones, but also very easy to read ones. So we're out there watching. We're trying to figure out if our birds are nesting. You're going to get close to these birds, and we need to respect them. We also need to teach others to by example. So it's our job to try to prevent unneeded disturbance to these birds. So always watch from a distance. At least that's where we start. When you're searching for a loon nest, you kind of start where they nested the last year or over the previous few years. Some years on some lakes, it's the same lake, same spot every year. Other lakes, like Wolcott Pond, they've nested in 10 or 15 spots over the last 20 years. They rarely use the same spot. There's so many good marshy habitat areas. And yes, starting to look from afar before you start searching in too close. But again, go back to the existing sites first, or where they've nested in the past. So marsh nests are where if they're not there and you want to start looking, or it's a new pair forming, look at the marshes and the islands. That's where they're going to most likely nest because they get away from the predators. And then some of our lakes, we got rafts. So that's another one to kind of look for. They rarely nest on an upland shoreline with dry soil behind it. That's where the raccoons, the fox, the mink have easy access and are cruising those sections all the time. The hangover position, that's when that bird is really watching you and they're trying to decide whether they need to get off that nest. Are you a threat? A lot of times they'll stick there and just hang over and wait till you get away, and then they'll relax, more like the right picture. Other times they will slip off the nest and you may not see it. And then all of a sudden there's a loon right next to you. Where did it come from? It's time to for you to back off and kind of look around. That happened to me last week on Berlin Pond. I was checking a shoreline where they have nested in the past. I was about 30, 40 feet from shore, and next thing I know, there's a loon right next to me. So I just kept paddling. I moved about 300 feet out. I turn around, and from the south, I could actually see an opening in the marshy habitat, and I could see the nest, and I could actually pick out the top of an egg. From the direction I was paddling, I couldn't see that. So I probably should have just stayed further out the entire time and just scanned back and forth. The loon went right back to the nest. So disturbances are they're obviously not great, but if you just get out of the way, they'll realize that they're fine and they'll get back on really quick. In most cases. For a nest disturbance, they rarely call out the wails, tremolos, and yodels. It's more likely when you're near a chick that they're going to do more calling. And again, most of these calls are actually aimed at other loons, not us, not other predators. It's or eagles maybe. They always call out at eagles, but not osprey. They definitely know the difference. Um, I'm just going to try one call just in case you guys can hear this. If you can't, we won't. I'll just visually go through them. Can you hear that, Dana?
No, it's not coming out through for me.
Okay. The whale call is a one or two or three note call, sort of a, and it's an identification call. It's often like looking for their mate or asking their mate to come back from wherever it is on the lake. It might be to identify another loon. It can be a sort of a intro to a potential disturbance, something coming in, boating in. It might just give a quick wail or another loon. The tremolo, sorry, my lips are already dry, is more of the loon laugh. And that's a sign of alertness. It could be agitation. It could be just like letting the family know that something's up. Again, it's often aimed at another loon or an eagle, potentially a boat that's coming in too close to the chicks. Excitement. It can also be, it doesn't necessarily have to be a threat. So that's a time to just like, hey, why are you calling out? What's going on? You'll hear this often, both whales and tremolos more at night, where they can't see one another. And so they just call a lot more. And I think like a bunch of kindergartners, you get one calling, they all start calling just for the heck of it. So it doesn't necessarily always pertain to an actual threat. Whereas the yodel is the male territorial call. It's a big crescendo with repeat syllables. And that's almost always aimed at a major threat being another loon. But again, they'll do it to eagles, they'll do it to float planes that are too low, um, anything that just is like really getting to them. And it's only the male that does it. They extend their head to do it. And then the hoot call, which is just sort of like the little hoo, 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 to each other, to their chick. When they're in a social group with a bunch of other loons, they might be doing more hoots like that. And that just, I'd be fascinated to know what's actually being said in those little conversations. The yodel's the one that's been most studied, and you can identify an individual loon by its yodel. So the heavier the bird, the deeper the yodel. Our birds know each other really well if you're in the same 20, 30 miles probably. So up here in Craftsbury, we got little Hosmer and big Hosmer with two pairs. If I recorded a yodel on big Hosmer and played it to the bird on little Hosmer, they're gonna like get a little agitated, but not a lot because they know that bird. They're like, "What are you doing over here, Joe? Your territory's over there. We got this settled." Whereas if I went to Maine, recorded a yodel, and brought it in, they're gonna drop everything. They might leave the nest. They might leave a chick. They're gonna go looking for that bird so they can sort of set up shop and say, "Hey, this is our spot. You go away." They don't know that yodel. We can identify the yodels through recordings. It's actually pretty amazing through the sonograms and individually identify the birds. The higher pitched yodels tend to be smaller males, and they're more vulnerable to a takeover. Whereas the big deep yodels, they hold territories better. They're bigger birds, longer throat, and just more body mass. But they're using both the visual and the verbal communication to avoid fighting, and most of the time that's what happens. They never actually escalate into a takeover event or anything like that. All right, interpreting loon behavior, especially, and now we're going to talk about pre-nesting. So see two loons in the water. It's May 20th. You can be pretty sure they're not nesting, especially if they're calm together, just kind of cruising around. Maybe they're nest searching. It's all part of the courtship process. But then that two loons changes to one loon. Where's the mate? And this is the time to, especially starting in mid-May, even early May sometimes, but all the way into June. Where's that other bird? Is it is it off the lake? Is it on the other end of the lake? Or is it on a nest? And that's when we start looking at previous nest sites, the marsh site, the island site, the raft. Make sure you use binoculars for scanning. And let's say you only saw one loon, you didn't find a nest. You come back 3 days later or a week later, and you check again, but there's still only one loon around. Where did that bird go? The possibility is on another pond or elsewhere on the lake, hidden nest, or maybe the pair dissolved. Especially for newer pairs, that does happen. And other times we're just humbled. We have no idea what's going on. That has happened to both Eloise and myself this week. I was on Maidstone. I paddled the entire lake of Maidstone, checked 3 territories, one loon in each territory, no one near any existing nest sites. I mean, maybe they snuck in. I did scan, the rest of the islands. I scanned a few marshes. I'm not seeing any other loon, and I really do not know where their mates were. And we can be pretty sure that they're around. And so we're hoping that maybe they're on a hidden nest that I just couldn't pick out, and not dissolved, the pair dissolved. So, and then the same thing happened on Lake Elligo yesterday to Eloise. There's 2 pairs on there. One's newer, and so there's a chance that that pair did dissolve. But the other pair's been there for 20 years, and she can't find the birds. They were hanging out by the boat access where there's a marsh. They've always nested on an island, and nobody at either location that she could see. But again, maybe they're back up a 10-foot channel around the corner, and you just can't see in there. So it does happen, and that's okay. That's where you email us, and maybe we go do a survey, try to do some extra surveys. We'll get there a little more often, and maybe we'll catch a nest exchange. Maybe, who knows? Maybe the bird just did leave the water. All right, surveying occupied nests. A week ago you went, there was a bird on a nest. You come back a week later. Hopefully you'll just confirm there's a bird sitting there, and you're done. We don't actually go in and try to check for egg numbers. We don't need to. But let's say that nest is empty a week later, 2 weeks later. What are the possible explanations? Here's the list, or part of the list. Nest exchange, they're changing places. It might be off, especially on a hot day, taking more time in the water before they climb back on. Intruder loons or people. Are they off because something disturbed them off that nest? Was it you? Was there a chance that you caused a bird to get off and now they're not on the nest? Maybe the nest failed. And when do we go in to check that? We'll go over that in a minute. Or maybe that first time you saw them sitting there, they didn't actually lay eggs, and they were just nest building. So that does happen, but not too often. The first choice is what to do is to come back later that day, the next day, next week. But if nobody's been surveying this lake or on a regular basis, are there any loons around? Maybe you could just do a paddle by, a drive by, or kind of get a little closer and see if there's anything in the nest bowl. But you want to make sure no loon is around, that you're going to cause disturbance. You really want to check that nest closely as you approach. Pause and stop multiple times. Are there people around who are going to hey, why are you within the signs? Or why are you getting close to that? You want to let them know what you're doing, and maybe they have information. So we really want to be careful and respectful. So if you go in and all of a sudden you look at the nest bowl and there's no eggs there, take a quick photo. Maybe there's egg shells. Maybe it was predated. So those are all things that are possibilities. When you see a nest success, the eggshell fragments are always tiny, no bigger than a quarter. You might see a membrane in there, although they often flick that off. Whereas a predated nest, it's often bigger eggshells. If it was a successful nest, go try to find an adult and watch from a distance for a while. In those first few days, the chick can often be tucked under a wing and hard to see. So a predated nest, eggshells are almost always bigger. Sometimes it can be a little peck like this from a bird. Other times it can be broken in half or a third from a raccoon. Or maybe there's eggs in the nest, but they're just abandoned. But we don't know that for sure. So we always got to give them 3, 4, 5 days or a week and do some repeated surveys to make sure that it was abandoned. Because there's a chance those eggs are still viable and the loons are just AWOL. They're gone for a while. All right, chick development. We got little chicks, 1 and 2 weeks old, 3 to 4 weeks old. And then on the right, up top anyway, a bigger chick, 12 to 14 weeks of age. At some point, we might be able to add that to LoonWeb where you could actually indicate this. You could always add a note of guessing what the chick age is in the comment section. Okay, and all right, a few more behaviors before we move on to LoonWeb. One is just general preening. They got to do this every few hours, where they're zipping up their feathers with their bill. They're spreading an oil, powdery oil from their oil gland. If they don't maintain that waterproofness, it's pretty much the beginning of the end of that bird. And then occasionally you'll see a bird that's really working those feathers hard, getting water deeper in to flush out the mites and the dirt. It's definitely my most common phone call. And we often call, I've labeled it extreme preening, but it's also called bathing. And then another place to go just for just some general more background than what we have on our website is the New Hampshire Loon Preservation Committee website, loon.org. And if you look under About Loons and then Loon Behaviors, they'll have both descriptions and some videos of different things that loons are doing. So that's a good resource, as well as lots and lots of books out there that are really, really good. All right, so if there's some obvious questions that you have, put them in the chat. We'll try to get to them at the end, but I definitely want to get through all the material. So we're going to switch gears and start going into LoonWeb. There's several aspects to it. One is the annual count, where we organize that day where we send out volunteers to 170 to 200 lakes, all at the same time on Saturday morning on the third Saturday. There's Loon Monitor, where we're, again, watching birds anytime from ice out to ice in November with a focus on the breeding season. Eventually, when we get more money, so if anyone has $40,000 in their pocket and wants to help us out, we need to, lots more projects we want to do with this. And one is dealing with rafts and signs in the management aspect, as well as dealing with birds in distress, and people reporting that and and cataloging all of that from rescue efforts to mortalities. And all of this is to help Eloise and I be out there more with you in the field, checking those lakes a little more frequently ourselves, rather than spending 2 days processing emails, which is what we've done for 20 some years. Because this is what it was back in 1983. That's the actual LoonWatch data form that was in the record books when I started. It was a handwritten sheet with what people saw, all down. So Somerset Reservoir had 1 adult that year. Lake Champlain, someone checked that out, had 3 adults somewhere. Kind of neat to have these records, and we're all going to get this into LoonWeb so you guys can actually explore it and look at the old data. When I came on board 25 years ago, I put everything into spreadsheets, but data like this actually never has gotten into a database. The final records did, number of nests, raft nests, island nests, chicks surviving, but not the individual counts from every day that we're out there. It's sort of handwritten like this or typed in. But anyway, with this new LoonWeb, we're going to have access to that all the time. So now with Dana on board and Jason Loomis on board and some grant money from a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service oil spill, we were able to get started on LoonWeb. So we have an Explorer page and a move on to actually enter the data via the survey pages. So let's just make sure everyone understands the difference between Loon Count and Loon Monitor. Loon Count's the 1-day survey. Loon Monitors the tracking of those pairs all year. Loon Count, we try to go out between 8 and 9 in the morning on small lakes, start a little earlier for the big lakes. And if you take on some little 10, 20, 30 acre lakes, maybe you only have to spend 10 or 15, 20 minutes there to make sure there is a loon or there isn't a loon. But it's nice to catch these little ponds if we can, even if it's not quite on Loon Watch Day or Loon Count Day. It used to be called Loon Watch, and we changed it to Loon Count because there was lots of confusion, because some people call the whole program Loon Watch, whereas we really wanted to pick out what is that annual 1-day census that we do, and we're going to call that Loon Count. It provides us an estimate of the adult population, so we had over 400 adults counted last year for the first time. It does a great check on what's going on midsummer. Sometimes we actually catch new nests and even some new pairs that we've never detected before. Any lake that we're starting to see 2 birds repeatedly, we're going to try to visit that more often in future years, especially in May and June, when that pair should be establishing, if they exist there. And we get to these small lakes that we don't often get to, or big lakes that we may not survey well that often. The Loon Monitor, it's all year long, and we've already kind of gone over what, in the behavior section, what we're looking for. So just keep that in mind. Those are the key dates. And if you ever see a change in status, that's when we would definitely want to see an entry, a data entry, so we can log that. And we're also going to then actually be able to document and log the interactions with loons and eagles and other things in a very systematic way. One of the big differences between Loon Count and Loon Monitor is that adoption status matters for Loon Count. We don't need to send 6 different people to a 200-acre lake or a 100-acre lake. We can just send one. And so if it's adopted, you don't we don't want you to we'd rather have you go to an unadopted lake. And in this case, green is adopted, blue is unadopted. For Loon Monitor, it doesn't matter. The more data, the better. If you go to a lake 3 times, there might be another person who goes there weekly, another person, maybe they visit every day because they live there. Multiple adopters. We all learn more this way by having, so don't get caught up like, oh my gosh, that lake's already adopted. I shouldn't take it. If it's a lake you like to visit, adopt it if it's one you're going to often. And next week, we'll open up all the lakes we haven't heard from people from last year. So we'll have a complete list of blue lakes that need adopting for the annual count for the loon for returning. So take a look at that at the middle of next week. Dana will be working on that. For adopting a Loon Monitor lake, if it's a lake you're going to visit more than a few times, adopt it. It makes it easy to find the lake on your list, on your My Adoption page, which is right here. So in my page right now, in Loon Monitor, I have Peachum and Little Hosmer. So when I log in, I can just go right to these lakes and click on it without having to search for that lake. It's also very easy to search for a lake, so I could hit that Survey Other Lake button at the bottom and just start typing in a lake or look on a map, and I can find the lake that I'm visiting once. For Eloise and I, we won't be doing much in the way of adoptions because we want other people to do that, and we're going to fill in the gaps for lakes that don't have regular visitors. If it's a lake you're only going to visit once or twice, it's not a regular thing, it might be better not to adopt it because you can just go to the Survey Other Lake. The Survey Other Lake is also a real great option for, hey, I'm going to go explore a different part of the state for the weekend or a Saturday outing. Just go to a bunch of lakes. It could be a 10-minute survey, a partial. It could be a complete 2-hour boat ride around, and you can enter data about that lake. For the large lakes, we've divided them into zones, and these correspond oftentimes with a territory for lakes that have more than one pair on it. So in our example, Forest Lake is only about 80 acres. It's got one pair. It only has one zone. It's just Forest Lake by itself. Whereas Great Avel's got 3 pairs on it. And so we have a north, a south, and a middle zone. And so within those zones, we can track everything that's going on within that territory. What that pair is up to, what they're doing. Are they nesting? Do they have chicks? Do they have lots of extra loon activity? Things like that. Little Avel's an example of where we've divided it into 3 zones, but there's only 2 pairs. So that south zone does not have a pair, but it's just the size of the lake made it easy to divide that into 3 parts so people could enter that. There's also a layers tab where you can actually click between lakes and zones and be able to see this more definitively. For loon count, if you're doing a big lake that it has multiple zones, and there's a group of you doing it, and maybe you're 3 people kayaking together or 4 people in a pontoon boat, and you're all making a good day of it or morning of it. We'd like you to all adopt it, but just have one person enter the data for that lake. You don't have to look at the zones at all. You just enter the data for the lake. For other examples, Green River Reservoir, there's a crew of folks who do this, and they actually do divide that lake into parts and send volunteers or groups of people to different sections at the same time. So we have one person doing the south end, one person doing the middle, or one group. It might be 2 or 3 people doing each one. Another one going way up to the north right away. They kind of beeline their way right up. There's 2 ways to enter that data. One, they collect it all and give it to one person who enters the data at once under one entry. But you can all adopt the lake for loon count. Or each person adopts each of their zones and enters their own data. They'll have times, they'll have locations, so we can make sure we don't have duplicate loon counts. For Loon Monitor, these zones really help in following each pair. And the trick for LoonWeb in entering the data is that for each zone or each territory, you need to start a survey and end the survey before moving on to the next territory or zone. So for Green River Reservoir here, I was just out here the other night. I saw the loon on the nest in this sort of southwest west cove. We call it Access Bay. There was a bird on the nest. There was another bird sort of just out in front. So I entered two adults, one on nest. I started that survey, ended that survey. Then I went up to the Merganser Inlet, which is the middle one highlighted in yellow. And there's a new nest form. I put the signs out because it was just detected this week. One bird on nest. That's all I looked at. I didn't go out into the main reservoir in the middle there at all. So I don't even know where its mate was. But I entered one adult on nest, incubating, and that was the begin. Started a survey for that, and I ended that survey. That's all I did. Headed home, and that's all I needed to do. All right, so let's run through a full PowerPoint of adopting the lake and then the actual data entry process. So that we went through all the little different components of it, and hopefully this will all kind of fall in line as we go. And again, it's going to be a little bit overwhelming, and because of that, we have lots of help for you. And if you're anything like me, you see it once, don't look at it for 3 weeks or a month or midsummer. It's like, whoa, I have no idea how to do this. Dana has been brilliant in creating cheat sheets and videos on how to log in, how to enter data. It's all going to be there. This video is going to be online so you can scroll through it. And you go to the Vermont Loon Conservation Project webpage on the VCE website. So you look up projects, type in loons in the search bar. You'll see the loon page show up. Click on it. It'll bring you here. And you can go to Loon Volunteer Materials. If you're a new volunteer, go to Participate. Enter your email there, and then you're part of the VCE community. And then lots of other information, old reports, basic background information, helping distressed birds, etc. So you go to the instruction page or materials page, and here it is. And we're going to be adding more things. We're just talking to Dana before we started this about adding a frequently asked question list. And maybe that can help answer some questions too. But how to sign up for a lake, how to use LoonWeb for Loon Monitor, which is actually what we're going to be going through a lot of this tonight. And some of those slides are actually right out of this cheat sheet. How to use LoonWeb for Loon Count Day, and then lots of different ways on signing in and entering your data. So, and then at the very bottom, if you look, there's log your loon volunteer hours. We get a grant from the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department non-game program, and we need matching hours and mileage. And that makes a big difference in receiving that grant money. So we really want people to log their hours for this program, whether that's 3 hours for survey or multiple half-hour surveys. If you're visiting a lake a lot and you're out there multiple times in the week, that gets to add up to be a lot. So you can get away with like a once a week entry and just add up your hours for what you did for the week. So if you did 3 surveys, each for an hour during 1 week, you could put 3 hours for that Saturday or something like that. And that would reduce the amount of time you have to enter. And this is a slightly different program, or it is a different program. We tried to get it lap. Maybe someday we will. So it can all be done in one program, but it's a separate one. So be patient and really help us out by entering your volunteer hours. And we're going to pester you. Please go do this. And it'll just make sure this hopefully help this project keep going. Okay, the big thing here when you go to the Sign Up Explorer page is logging in and getting an account. And are you signed in even if you have a previous account? And to do that, look in the upper right. There's a little icon with a head symbol. If it's white, it means you're not logged in or you've not signed up yet. And so that's where you have to start. And there's also I buttons. I want to just point that out because that might provide information, more background information about where you're at in the LoonWeb program. Anyway, to start an account or to log back in, you need to be in the same device and browser. So the same computer with Firefox, same computer with Chrome. And that way your email will do everything. You don't need passwords. The same thing will apply if you do the phone app. Right now, the phone app, we only want people who are willing to test it and willing to get stuck a few times. There's still some glitches in it, and we're working all that out. And if you want to put it on your phone and use this in the field or from your car, contact Dana D. Williams at vtecostudies.org, and she'll go through the ropes of how to get it onto your phone properly. Hopefully by next year we'll have that phone app up and running more running smoothly. So that profile icon is where you're going to start. once you're signed in, again, there's the cheat sheets and some webs on how to sign in. So please go there to learn that. We don't have enough time to go over all of that. Um, Once you're signed in, then you can start thinking about what do I want to survey? Where do I want to go? And first is that upper left button, LC or LM, Loon count or Loon monitor. Eloise is already messed up. Not messed up. She already got confused by this. She's like, why can't I see any of my data? Where is it? And it's because she was in Loon count. She needed to click the button LM for Loon monitor because that's where all her data was. Um, and most of the time it's going to be LM from unless it's again for that annual count day. So so now we're in LC. Um, I want to think, oh, I want to, what survey, where should I go survey? Um, and you can start searching for a lake by entering in the search bar a town or a lake name. And you don't have to type the words lake or pond. You can just enter Adamant, Sodom, uh, Curtis, Nelson, any of those things. And it'll just start popping up a list and you click on the name. You can't just type the name and hit your return bar or your enter. You actually have to click on the name, the pre-selected list that pops up. You could also go to the list on the left, and you could, if you hit water body name at the top, or water body town, or water body acres, you can search by those. So you can search by town, alphabetically, or by size. And then there's the map view. So you could scroll in and look at an area and see what's adopted, green, or what's unadopted, and they're open, blue. And then the last one is in that upper right of the map, there's a bunch of like papered layered together. If you click on that, you can actually hit zone. And if you're going to a bigger lake that's divided into zones, that will show all the zones really clearly. Um, so if you're going to do loon count, is the lake adopted? You can actually go to this filter button, adoption status, click on that, and then click on the button unadopted, and it would only show you the unadopted lakes. And so that's a way to go to search for that. I'd recommend if you're new and you want to take on a loon count lake, wait till the end of next week when we know that volunteers who are returning or not returning, so we can make sure that all of their lakes are unadopted as well. We definitely have issues where sometimes people adopt a lake from a person who's been doing it for a decade straight, and it's like, oh my gosh, that's my lake. Why is it taken? Well, we'll email Dana or myself or the Loon at vtecostudies.org, and we'll get that figured out. But again, for Loon Monitor, the status does not matter. The more people adopting, the better. We really want, whether you're doing it just once or twice, or whether you're doing out there weekly, it all adds to the data of why were they off the nest that day? Was it an intruder loon? Or are there more eagles around? There's lots of interesting stuff that can happen the more observations we make. So yeah, use that adoption status filter. You can also just filter my adoptions. So the lakes that you can look to see what you've adopted. We talked about the zones already. When you do get here, and I went to Bombacine, here's the example. Is there a name listed in that right section? And if there is, that means that's kind of the person who adopted it. They may have their handle in there. You may not recognize it. It may be someone's name. It's however they want to be recognized. It could be anonymous because that's also an option. And let's say, okay, Lake Bombacine, it's not adopted. I have a motorboat. It's a big lake. I can do it. I'm going to click adopt. I can also explore past data for the loon count data. Eventually, we hope to have past data for Loon Monitor as well that people can explore and previous surveys so you can kind of keep track of, oh, when was the last survey done? What did they see? And we can be able to kind of share all that information amongst each other. So I clicked adopt. It's going to bring you to this page. So this is for Alden, our communications person at VCE now. And she has to click on the communications consent. VCE can send you information about field notes and e-news, as well as our Loon stuff. Data use consent. We're going to use your data. It's going to be put into a big database. It's going to be accessible. So we need your consent for that. And then you can choose anonymous. You can choose your display name. I have E. Hanson for one, and then for my Loon account that Eloise and I share, I put Chief Loon. So it's kind of a fun one. So you can also you can add in at some point your full name, which is actually very helpful to Eloise and I when we're reviewing surveys. We're like, oh, that's so and so. We got it, because we won't know your handles either, but we can try to look it up if you provide your first and last name. and then hit adopt. It's going to give you a little summary of what it is so you can check. Was it Loon Count or Loon Monitor that I wanted? So Loon Count, volunteer bombacine. Perfect. That's what I wanted. Was it Loon Monitor you wanted? Oh, shoot, that's not what I want. And you can back out and start again and go check the LM box for Loon Monitor. So now that lake turns green, it's adopted. And if I decide, oh man, I can't do it, something came up, graduation that weekend, or there's a wedding, or whatever, you can pick unadopt. And so it's the red button on the right, unadopt bombacine. It's going to feed you through the same filter to make sure you want to unadopt it. So super easy to do. You can also make sure your profile is up to date. You can change contact information by hitting that icon. It's going to bring you to this page where you can see your first name, last name, your handle. Dana was doing this last year for long-term volunteers who hadn't adopted lakes, so she was holding them, and she put her little handle was hold for long-term volunteers. And that included this whole list of lakes down below in the Loon count. The main thing for the reason for adopting a lake under Loon Monitor, again, repeated surveys, is that it shows this list of lakes in front. And so you can go easily just go there without having to search for it. If you want to return to the Explorer page, you can hit the Done button. That'd bring you back to this page. All right, let's start a survey. We're finally ready. We're here. This is what opens up on my page when I open up the vt.loonweb.org. It's listed in the upper left. It shows it right here. And then, okay, I want to make sure I'm in Loon Count or Loon Monitor. So at this time of year, it would be all Loon Monitor. I switch that to LM. I click on that. It brings me to sort of the My Adoptions page, or your account page. And I have Peacham North and Little Hosmer as my Loon Monitor lakes. I don't have anything under Loon Count. And then there's this other button called Survey Other Lake. So that's if I wanted to go to a different lake that I might just visit once or randomly. Whereas if I go to like Little Hosmer's down the road from me, I might go to that all the time. So I just keep it here. I click on it. It gets me there without having to search for it. Let's see what else. Yeah. So if you randomly visit a lake once or twice, you go visit a friend, somewhere, and you stop by the lake for 10 minutes and you see a loon out there and you want to enter it. Don't adopt that lake. You can just go to the Survey Other Lake button, look for it either by the search bar or by a map, and then you can enter what you saw. So hopefully that makes sense. If I hit Peacham North or Little Hosmer or Survey Other Lake, it's going to bring me to this page. And in this case, it's Sherman Reservoir. So I could delete Sherman Reservoir and start over and just start typing a lake name, and it'll give me a list to choose from. I can edit those fields. If Sherman Reservoir was one of my adopted lakes, it would just automatically fill in Sherman Reservoir. Down the way there, you can put your survey time, your survey date. If you're doing this at the computer, which most of you will be doing this year, just make sure those are correct. Time is less of an issue as long as it's close. Date is more important. Make sure the GPS track is no. That's only for the phone version. So you'll only use that if you're taking your phone with you in your boat and you're cruising around, entering data as you go. See what else. The history tab at the bottom in the middle, you can look at your past surveys, and the account button will bring you back to that accounts page or my adoptions page. If I wanted to look at a map and choose a lake from a map, I'd hit that little balloon in the upper right. And that would bring up a map view, and I could click on a lake, and then it would bring me back to here, where I could start my survey. You hit this, you confirm that everything at the top is right. GPS track no, start survey. I'm ready to go. All right, it brings me to Spectacle Pond. I'm ready to go. I'm surveying. I'm out there in my canoe or kayak. If I see a loon, I can add a loon. If you're doing this at home that evening, you would come home and just go right to this page and hit add loons for what you saw. You enter the time, enter the number of adults, chicks, and subadults. I'll go over that in a second. Was a bird on a nest? Did they seem to be like in a casual pair versus an extra loon? And then there's this edit location where you could actually move the loon icon to where you saw the birds. The phone app, you can actually get away without having to do that because it's going to follow you where you are, although you can still manipulate it if you want. Um, so chick is any age chick from that year. The only place it gets tricky is end of the summer when a big chick, look at that lower left picture, looks a lot like a subadult, a 1 or 2 year old. During the rest of the year, if you see a subadult, you know that that's not a chick because there's no way that that bird could be that big in June, July, or even August. They're gonna look a lot different than that. So that subadult is actually from Lake Rescue about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And it's a 1 or 2 year old that returned early. They look a lot like a big chick, scallop feathers, a lot of gray, white on the throat. For smaller lakes where you can see all those loons, like I was, I don't know, on a 50, 100 acre lake, and there's two loons just up to the left and two loons just to the right, I could probably just enter 4 adults, plus, plus, plus in that adult section. Whereas if I'm at a mile long lake and at the south end I see 1 adult, and I go to the north end, there's 2 adults and a chick up there, that you might want to do separate entries for that. And we'll go through those separate entries in a second. You don't want to double count. So if any chance that a bird swam from one end to the other and joined another group, you don't want to turn that into more loons than what's there. You could leave them as two separate groups, or if you go home and enter the summary data because you were there while they were separate and then while they got together, you could potentially just enter the one while they were together and have it as one entry. Hopefully that makes sense. Don't count flying loons unless you see them on the water. So do they take off? Do they land? All right, so I got onto Spectacle Pond. I saw two loons in the south section. I go plus plus for the adults. And then I click the edit location button. And you're going to get an icon like this, and it's going to be flashing. And I can drag it to wherever I saw those birds for the location. And then I'm going to click on that again. And when I click on that icon again, it's going to give me this little button, edit or done. I could edit it, I could move it, I could change the number of adults, or I can click done, and it's going to turn the icon blue and set it in place. And then I paddle up to the north end, and I see another loon on a nest. And there's a chick next to it, which is pretty rare to see, but it does happen, where it takes about 24 to 48 hours for that second egg to hatch. So there's a chick next to the nest with an adult there. So I have a second group of loons. I've already added the first blue icon of where I saw 2 adults hanging out. So that may have been a mate with an intruder. Not really sure. Anyway, the second group is up in the northeast, sorry. So I'm going to go through the same process. Add loons. I'll add 1 adult and 1 chick in this case. I hit the edit location button. I drag it up to there. Click it again. It'll give me the done or edit button. I'll hit done. And then it'll turn blue, and now I have 2 locations of 2 groups that I saw. Because one bird was on the nest, I'm going to add a nest, so I'll click on that. And then it's going to want some information about that nest. Do you think it's a shore or marsh nest? That can be the most difficult to tell apart sometimes. Sometimes it's not distinct. Island nest or raft nest. And then nest code. Is it building? That's B. You can hover over these we're going to go through all this. XN for off nest, I for incubation, HI for there's a hatch and an incubation, U unknown, you don't know really what's going on, but you think there's a nest. Failed nest. They were on a nest and now eggs are in it, eggs got depredated, and then a renest. Those are all options that you could hit. So shoreline nests, again, solid substrate behind it. This nest is actually a little on the edge. It could almost be counted as a marsh nest, that picture. But then there's island, and that could be a dry substrate. It could be marshy. It could be any habitat, but it's on an island. Marsh, almost always a little bit of water around it, in a wetland complex. And then rafts. So nest building, they're often moving around a lot on it, flicking material, not on it for very long, and then they get off. There's definitely a lot more movement, but occasionally they'll sit there for a few minutes. And if you catch them right during the right 30 seconds, you might think they're sitting on eggs. So that is a confusion sometimes, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. XN, off nest, all the reasons why they could be off. So we've already gone through a lot of these of why a bird might be off the nest. And again, they're all listed there. This video is going to be available as well as a PDF cheat sheet for going through all this. Yeah, if unsure if the eggs are present, almost best to come back if you can. But if again, no birds around, no people around, or people around, but you tell them, you can sometimes go in for a quick look. Incubating, pretty obvious. Birds just sitting there rolling on the egg maybe once in a while. But they'll spend 3 to 8 hours at a time, male and female, switching places. And then hatch incubating. So we got a loon in the water with an adult. We got the other one sitting on a second egg. Unknown. There's definitely some nests that we can't see. And we just kind of speculate that there might be a nest based on two bird versus one bird activity on the water. So this could be nest unknown. I think there's a nest, but not sure. You could, and if you've not confirmed a nest in the first place, you might just be leaving this as one loon on the water, and leave it at that, and not even hit the nest button. Failed nest depredation. Here's some big eggshell fragments. Two different eggs that got depredated. One is kind of looks like a hatch, but I've never seen an eggshell that big, even in the lower part of that picture, that from a successful hatch. They're always broken into tiny pieces. No idea why that is. Are they off nest dealing with an intruder? That's becoming more commonplace. Did it get flooded or stranded? Did they leave it for that reason? And unknown. The eggs are gone. Just we have no idea why the eggs disappeared. Did they kick them out? Did the predator get them? Renest. Usually takes about 10 to 14 days or longer for a pair to renest. Sometimes same spot, but sometimes different. You can always return to the previous page with some of the return buttons at the top. There's X and also little half circles. You can add your comments about the nest here. Exact location, part of the island, southwest, northeast, east, really close to the water line. That might be worthy of an email to us so we can let a hydro company know that they're only 2 inches off the water line. And then maybe they can do a better job or a good job of making sure it doesn't get flooded. Always good to know those things. And then you have the edit location of the nest. And the same thing with the nest icon. You can drag it, click it again. It'll give you that edit done button. Click it again. Jason just developed a new way that you might put those on top of each other. And when you hover over it, it's going to divide it out. And so you can see what's what. I've not actually seen it yet. Hopefully it works pretty well. Otherwise, you can just kind of put them next to each other as well. Close, they don't have to be right on top of each other, but it works. And at any point, you can click on those, like the blue icon, and it'll give you the option to edit it again. So it's not permanent. You can move it if you decide, oh, I didn't quite put that in the right spot. Or, oh man, there really was only one bird, but I thought there were two initially. Something like that. The other options, other tabs at the bottom, predator, behavior, comments, are all optional. So please add data if you have the time. For predator, it's more of the real things we want to follow are eagles and eagle attacks. So it will only give you one option there. And if the eagle's present, just sitting in a tree, not interacting, that's exactly what that would be. If the eagle is harassing the birds and they're really reacting to it, you might want to put something like that. If they're just calling out at the eagle, probably just eagle present and maybe a note or comment. Loons, feeling agitated from the eagle by tremoloing or whatever. Human, dog, and other. We're going to change that to just other because it could be a snapping turtle. It could be a crow or a raven. Only if the bird is interacting with those entities would you ever make a comment about this or enter it. Because most of the time it's not. Behavior. If you click the behavior tab at the bottom, it's going to make you have to click the plus behavior button as well. And we're going to actually probably just change that to behavior, not plus pair. In part because you can have a single bird just displaying and doing something. And the type of behavior you might note is they're just calm together. Probably don't need to do this too often, but you can if you want. Alert. Is the bird like kind of agitated, looking around, peering, head going up and down, swimming kind of fast? What is it alert about? If you don't know, you would click that. If you see another loon and it's nearby, but not interacting much with the pair, and they're not doing much, or another individual with a nest, you could just click the intruder one. If they're less aggressive, you could so alert would be heads going up and down, brow raised, swimming with purpose. The intruder present but not interacting, And then less aggressive would be they're actually interacting, but it's pretty mild. They're doing circle dances, they're pairing, but they're not really going at each other. More aggressive would be calls, penguin dancing, wing rowing, chases, things like that. And you would eventually just list what the highest level that you saw while you were out there. So that's those buttons right there. You could also then enter comments. And comments are really key. Really add notes about what you're seeing. And then you're going to edit. You can click that location button. You can drag that icon to where you saw that behavior and then click the done, or click on it again and then click done. General comments on the over on the right. Click on that and it'll just give you the comments page. And here's where you can share your stories, more observations. People have been asking, I go on my lake every day and check on a pair. Do I need to do an observation? Do I need to do an entry every day? And it's like, the answer is no. Once a week is probably fine unless you see a change in the status. But in the comments, you say, hey, I was out there 3 days this week, pair always on the, or bird always on the nest. But if you have time, when you see an eagle, see an extra loon floating around, you could add an observation with the behavior or the predator buttons. All right. So here for our spectacle pond, we got 2 loons in the south lobe. We got 1 loon on a nest with a chick in the upper lobe. And now we're ready to end the survey. We have to add an end time. We like to get the level of effort. How many people were with you? Just again, part of effort. If you were paddling, how far did you go or how far did you walk along the shoreline? Check those numbers. 3 adults, 1 chick, 1 nest. Okay, that's good. I'm going to go over those other buttons in a second. Was it a boat survey, shore traveling? So if you went to like 3 or 4 locations along the shoreline, observing out versus just in one spot at the boat access or from your cottage. That's what that would be. Was it a complete survey or partial survey? So these are required. If you hit complete, you did the whole lake, you could see the whole lake. You really did a fairly thorough job. Partial would be if you just, beelined it to the nest site area. Are they on the nest? Are they not on the nest? And then headed back home. And did you see 20% of the lake? Did you see 80% of the lake? When you hit partial, it's going to give you that option of plus or minus the percentage. These next ones are optional, weather and wave conditions, but they're pretty easy just to click as you're on your way to the complete button. You could also save it as you could also edit, go back. You could also save it as a draft if you wanted to add comments later or change something or review something. But you can hit complete. Yep. So yeah, I already talked about this a little bit. So you'd hit complete, but you still need to upload buttons. There's 2 ending processes. There's complete the survey, and then there's uploading the survey. It's going to bring you to your history page, and then you want to hit the upload button when you're ready. You can go back and edit it again, but the only way to edit a completed survey is to be probably at home on the internet. It's just a different way of, because once it's complete, it's in a different version. Don't ask me about that. It's all software stuff. But we did make it so you can go back and edit, but the only way to edit it once you've hit the complete button is to do it at home. You can also delete the survey. It's like, oh man, I don't know what I did. It's not right. I want to start over. Just delete the whole thing, start over. Or you can experiment at home and do some samples. Just do some go through your head and think about, okay, I see 2 loons here, 3 loons at that end. Think of it a complicated situation. Do a practice run. See what it does. And then before you get to this, when you get to this page, hit delete. If it's a practice run, not a real thing. But there's 2 big mistakes that people make. One, they're in Loon Count or Loon Monitor. They forget which one they want to be in. The other one is people hit the end survey and the complete button, but they don't hit the upload button. I'm guilty. This afternoon, I went through and probably uploaded 15 surveys off my phone that I'd not gone home to upload. When you're doing the phone app, you can only hit the upload button when you have cell service. Whereas when you're home on the computer, you can pretty much hit the complete and hit the upload all at once because you're already connected. I think that's it. Yeah, hit upload and you're done. That history page at the bottom, you can see the surveys below that. Dunmore South, Harvey's North. Those were all surveys that I'd done earlier. So you can kind of scroll through that and see all of your surveys from the entire summer. Why is this data important to us? One, it gives us a start date for nests. That's a real big one. which then gives us a potential hatch date. We can focus our efforts and we can have a better idea of why nests fail and why they're, are they successful? What's going on there? We can remove those nest signs promptly. We like to get those off within a week after nesting versus a month. We're starting to document the effects of competition and eagles, which is it's really difficult to like, how do we quantify that? And this is a way to do that. The other part is it just gives us a lot of observations in a usable format versus being stuck in those spreadsheets or those handwritten notes. So who knows what type of analysis we could do? We could look at two egg hatches or two eggs. We could look at one egg hatches. We can look at um, types of nests, nest locations, success rates, all sorts of things. We can add things to LoonWeb in the future. Dana's really interested in behavioral things, so maybe we'll add a behavioral component and we can add a whole like check this box to do more behavior work if you're entering that. More management work. We'll have a whole other section on Loon Manage. And potentially we could add that into Vermont DEC, toxicology, lake water quality stuff. I'd love to do a study on clearness of lakes and chick productivity because that's an issue in Wisconsin where they see declines. So anyway, lots of potential down the road. But we also don't want to lose the email contact with you folks. This is really important for us or phone call. I had two phone calls today. One about a bird that's beaching itself on Shadow Lake. Chrissy Cano called me, and it's like we had a good 20-minute discussion of how to proceed with that. Please contact us. You don't just have to use LoonWeb now that it's here. And this just like it builds your knowledge, it builds our knowledge. We'll learn from LoonWeb and your comments. If you want us to call you or something or contact you by email, put it in the comments. Again, we'll be trying to keep up with that. So, please stay in touch. Again, you guys are the educators out there. You're our eyes and ears. You're our biologists. And we just, so valuable to have all of that. It's what's made this program super, super successful. And this photograph was probably taken about 1 a.m. after a night of capture banding a few years ago down in Yule Pond. So Dana Williams, that's our person in the background who's helping to make a lot of this happen. She's really kind of like, if it was just Jason and I, we would be 2 years behind what we're at right now. Dana has really like done the testing, gone the back and forth, found groups to pilot everything. And that's why we've made so much progress so quickly, even though it doesn't always feel like that, especially to probably Jason and Dana. And Jason is just really good about figuring out how to make this software usable and somewhat user friendly. And I'm really glad that he's been open to that. So I hope you're a little overwhelmed, maybe not a lot overwhelmed, but start playing with it. The last big thing that Jason pointed out, press buttons. You're not going to mess this up. And if you do, you just, hey, I don't know what I did. Can you take a look at whatever I just entered on LoonWeb? We can always change it. We can always figure it out. We can always give you feedback. It's like, oh, here's your mistake. Here's our mistake. Oh, that was a glitch, but we got to fix that. So anyway, it's a back and forth, and we really appreciate you taking this on. All right, I am going to switch gears here. Let's see. I'm going to see if I can go straight to LoonWeb. Dana, are you out there?
Yep.
Is it up on the screen?
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's go check some of this out. So the search bar, Loon monitor, adoption status, so adopted, unadopted, my adoptions. Eventually we're going to have survey priority. So that would be lakes that are breeding lakes, super loon active. That would be high. Medium would be somewhat loons have been seen on it. Low would be those smaller lakes usually, or some lakes that just don't have much loon activity. And you can kind of filter by that. So filtering by a high priority lake that needs surveys is a great way to help out. I don't have a boat. What do I do? Are there any lakes I can go to? You could click all the lakes that are surveyable by shore. And we'll try to get that in there. I'm not sure if this is in there yet. But we're getting there bit by bit. So I'm going to have all, let's just do an example of, let's see, where was I the other day? I was on Silver Lake in Barnard. I was just passing through on my way to give a in-person talk in Rutland. I start typing silver And look at all the silver lakes: Silver Leicester, Silver Georgia, Silver Barnard. And again, I don't have to type lake or pond. I click on it, um, and it's I think I might have this. Well, I don't know. Maybe I adopted it. Oh no, Nancy NM, adopted by Nancy NM. So I don't know who Nancy NM is, but maybe I could figure that out if I look. Oh, I do know who that is. Okay. Um, anyway, so hopefully she'll be visiting it. But I'm in Loon Monitor, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know if she's going 3 times a summer or every week or every day. Um, again, that doesn't really matter. I don't really need to adopt it. So, but I can kind of look. I could adopt it if I wanted to, and that's where I would hit right here. So let's say I was on my way to Vins all the time, and I decided I was going to swing through this one all the time. So I hit Loon Monitor Adopt. It pops up my E. Hanson at Project Loon Monitor, Lake Silver. I hit the Adopt button. It gives me my confirmation page. Yep, Loon Monitor, that's what I want. I want silver. I hit OK. And it should bring me back to this, but it should be green. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we'll see what happens now when I'm going to go to my adoptions in a minute. But let's say I just want to go back to the state view. If the little house in the lower right, okay, there it is, would bring me back to the state view. But first, before we do that, Loon Monitor unadopt. I could now unadopt that lake through the similar process of adopting, literally hitting 3 buttons of just more of a confirmation thing. And it's really really quick. So that's again, if you're not, you decide, oh, I don't go to that lake very often. Oh, I signed up for Loon Count, but again, I can't go that day. Please go to this and unadopt it, so we make sure other people can find it. That's more for Loon Count than it is for Loon Monitor. More important anyway. If I hit that little house in the lower right of the map, and this could be my computer because it's 10 years old and about ready to crash, and I haven't switched over to my new one yet. But this is also good in case things do get bugged up. You can always sort of exit out um, and open it up again, and it'll bring you back. So again, my computer is literally, it does freeze up. Using Google right now is horrible. Hopefully next week I have time. No, actually, it won't be next week to switch over to a new computer. All right, so it's just churning away. So I'm going to actually exit out. And this is again a good example where you can just press buttons and sort of redo it. So if I go to here, I put it on my page or my list, and there it is. So it actually brought me right back here. All right, so I want to see what I have under my lakes, and I want to get started on a survey. So I'm going to hit that green icon in the upper right with the head. That means I'm signed in. It's not white. So now I have Little Hosmer, Duck Pond, and Craftsbury, a little tiny guy, and Silver as my Loon Monitor lakes. So now, if those are regular lakes I visit, now I can just click on that and start my survey. For Loon Count, I signed up for Page Pond, another tiny one near my house. Um, but let's say I'm just roaming around. I want to survey another lake. So I'm going to hit Survey Other Lake. It gives up my starting page. So I go in there and I can start typing little. Oh, well, I did have a Little Hosmer, but I'm going to do a Little Hosmer anyway. So you can always search for a lake this way. See, it's there below it. Now I got to click on it. So I'm in. I went out there today with a new volunteer. It wasn't 7:04. It was this morning. It was about 10 o'clock, 10 a.m. Switched. GPS track, no, because I'm doing this at home. This anywhere in simulator just because I'm on the admin version. So now I'm ready to start my survey for Little Hosmer today at 10 a.m. We got there and there were 2 loons by the island. And if I scroll in, I can show you this. It was right here. There were 2 loons. One actually climbed up onto the nest, or what we thought was, might be a nest. It crawled onto shore. It then got off, and we put nest warning signs around it, thinking they might start nesting in the next week or so. We still didn't know if there were eggs. But while we were doing that, a 3rd loon showed up just south of here, and they had a little interaction. And so they were all together in this vicinity. So I'm going to add loons. There were ended up being three total. I could have done this in two different entries, but I'm just going to keep it as simple as three. Um, they kind of were on the nest. So I'm going to click that. And there was a pair. No chicks. Um, let's see. All right, I got my little screen showing all of you guys that gets in my way. So all I had to do is plus plus for those three birds I saw. Now I'm going to edit location. And I'm going to scroll back out because that's not what I really want. I want to see the whole lake here. All right, if it's going to put it kind of in the middle, and I'm going to drag it to where I saw them, just south of the island and near the island. And then I click on it again, and then that window pops up, editor done. I'm going to hit done, turns it blue. So we had three loons in that area. All good. There was actually some nest activity, so I'm going to add a nest. It was on an island. We actually did a paddle by when the loons were down south of us, and there were no eggs, so they were building. They're still working on it. So we'll leave it at that. I'm going to edit location, drag it up to there. I click on it again. I hit done. So now we got my three birds. I got the nest. I want to add a quick comment because that third bird flew off. So third loon flew. Um, if I wanted to add more information about how they interacted, I could go to the behavior page and do that. But man, I'm going to go out here every week. Don't need that level of detail. I'm going to hit end survey. I'm going to hit the end time. It was about 10:45. There were two of us. Again, that's kind of hidden behind my little screen here. We paddled, I don't know, probably like 2 miles today, 1 mile up, because we did the whole lake. I could also hit the plus buttons or the minus buttons. I checked my results, three adults, zero check, zero sub-adult. They were working on the nest, so we count that as a nest. We did it by boat. We were in kayaks. It was a pretty complete survey. So I'm going to just put complete. It was cloudy. Actually started sprinkling a little bit. It was pretty calm. Actually, it was very calm. And then I can hit complete. And now I could hit upload if I wanted to. And actually, this is a real survey. Hopefully the volunteer I was with is also entering it, but it doesn't hurt necessarily to enter it twice. And I will hit upload. It is now uploaded. And I have some trial runs below the other little Hosmer, a little Dunmore, which I may end up deleting those because I think those were practice. So anyway, that's all there. And then I could start a new survey. I'm in the history page right now. I could go back to this account page, which shows my adoptions and everything else. And if I wanted to go back to the original, I'd hit that sign up explorer button. Brings me back to the original page. But I want the full map view, so I'm going to hit the little house, and it brings me back to here, and I could search for another lake. Or if I wanted another survey, I got back here. I was like, oh man, I should have just started a new survey. I could hit my icon, survey other lake, and start over again, and start a whole new survey. So that last process really took us just about a minute. If I went through relatively quickly, and all I can, just play with it, see how it goes. Contact Dana, myself, or Eloise if you have questions. And again, really, really appreciate you taking this on. I'm gonna sort of stop my stop my share, and then I'll go to the chat box and see what's in there for questions. Okay. Yep. PowerPoint. We're gonna make this into a PowerPoint, and it'll be available as a video. Oh, Dana's already answering all these. Okay. Locations on the map, mobile, all good there. The app version when you're on your computer will be able to either edit location, or you can kind of just note where the loons are near where you are in the boat. So that's kind of a neat option there. All right. Well, again, this was a lot of information, and I actually did it in under an hour and a half, hour 50. That's amazing. The first time I did this, it took me 2 hours. So you're lucky because you can only hear somebody for so long. Let's see what else. Yeah, just go start playing with it. Go visit lakes, do some practice runs, and delete those. Uh, Again, thanks so much to all of you for making this program so super successful. We just really could not do it without your eyes and ears and the education that you give. Before I forget, starting today, yeah, if anyone wants a road trip this weekend, or next week, Highland Center for the Arts in Greensboro, big, huge theater building with a gallery, has over 20 artists who've done loon related art. I have not been yet. I'm going to go tomorrow, hopefully, to check it out. Eloise went yesterday, and she was just blown away by it. Absolutely beautiful stuff. And it's open 12 to 4, Thursday to Sunday. I don't know about Monday to Wednesday of next week yet, but next Thursday to Sunday, it'll be open again and might be open Monday to Wednesday too. Next Saturday on the 20th, we're doing a reception from 2 to 5 where you can meet the artists. We'll be giving a little spiel around 3:30 to everybody, maybe a little slideshow as well as a welcoming, and just talking about art and loons and just having a good time. So really, it's a kind of a neat event. I think that covers it. Um, Dana, anything else from the background?
Um, I just wanted to, because I was half listening, just wanted to make sure that people know that the loon count versus loon monitor matters for the adoption part of the site, but the survey is the same for both of them. It's just um, how much of the survey we ask you to fill out.
All right. I see Noah there. Noah, hey, let's go paddling. Um, and yeah, we'll take a look. Again, shoot us emails. Um, Tomorrow, I'm actually meeting with our communications director, Alden, and we're going out with the environmental reporter for Vermont Public to talk all about LoonWeb. So the state's going to learn about it. It's making Dana nervous, but no, no, this is great. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Have a great season. Keep those reports coming in. Look forward to having another great summer. So thanks, everybody.